Our next guest says there is one thing each of us are destined to do in our lives. Author Steve Olsher has been helping thousands of people determine exactly what that is. He's the author of What Is Your What? Discover the one amazing thing you were born to do. Steve Olsher joins us now on Connecticut Style. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks
Welcome.
for having me.
So Steve, is there really just one thing that prevents someone from living a full, happy life?
It is. It's
just one thing?
Just one thing, and it's just all about discovering your what. And the really important thing to remember here is that your what isn't something that you do, it's who you are. Once you discover that, that's when life takes on a whole new meaning.
Oh, Steve, you say there are 3 steps to kind of figuring out what that what is.
Yeah, so in order to be able to answer the question of what is your what, you need to understand, number one, what are your gifts? What are your inherent gifts? It's in your DNA, it's in your blueprint. There's nothing you can do about it. As I say, your what has chosen you.
Sure.
It is not that which you have chosen.
Okay.
Then you've got to figure out your vehicle that you'll use to share your gifts with the world. And then number 3 is the people that you're most compelled to serve. So those are the three elements of the equation.
So a little bit of self-evaluation, right? Thinking a little bit about what you're good at, or more or less. And you say it's important to kind of reinvent yourself.
Well, reinvention is sort of one of these nomenclature terms that's been thrown around now for years. When Burger King talks about reinventing the hamburger, maybe we have to readdress the term. But reinvention is really all about becoming who you are. It's not at all about changing anything. It's just kind of shedding the shackles of all the clothes and outfits and everything that we've worn over the years and get back to the essence of the core of who you inherently are.
Okay. Why don't we talk about some examples of people who have actually found their what?
Oh, I love, so great examples and countless examples, but a few of my favorites are people like Dr. Joe Amoya, who started as a chiropractor, got his degree, the whole 9. He had to practice. He was making a lot of money and woke up one day and just said, I can't do this anymore. Made a full-on 180. Today, he's known as the smarter dating guy. He actually helps single women find love.
That's pretty interesting stuff.
Another one?
Sure,
Or
give me one more.
Yeah, okay, one more. I love this one too, because sometimes when you talk about the equation of your gifts, the vehicle, and the people, sometimes just one of them is slightly off, and it's that little subtle difference that makes just all the difference in the world. And so one of the people that I love to talk about is Donna Miller, who her gifts are teaching and healing. Absolutely a teacher and a healer. The vehicle that she used to share those gifts with the world, nursing. So she had been a nurse in a general hospital for years, really liked it, but just wasn't quite there.
Sure.
She figured out that the people she's most compelled to serve are the disadvantaged elderly. And so once she was able to plug that piece of the equation, a piece of the puzzle into the equation, she now has a job at a VA hospital, loves what she does. And so again, sometimes it's just a subtle shift, which makes all the difference.
Well, let me ask you, how did you start figuring out what your what was?
It was a process.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely
it's not
a process.
that happened overnight, right?
No, well, for me it wasn't. And I got to take you back. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur, so literally started when I was in my late teens. Had a huge wake-up call about 5 years ago where I was with my stepfather, who was very much a father to me. Unfortunately, he was in his final days of life. I was holding his hand. He couldn't speak, but I had a vision of my funeral through that point of physical touch. And in that vision, I heard the words being spoken graveside, which were, "Here lies Steve Olsher. He dedicated his life to chasing the almighty dollar." And that's all that was said. And it hit me really hard, and that's what threw me on this path. And I knew that I had to do something different. And my stepfather was really saying, you are forging a path that is not leading you in a direction that will empower you to affect not only those who share this lifetime with you, but also those of lifetimes to come. Wow. So it's been a process, but that was my turning point.
So what happens if people get that sort of image and that sort of motivation, but they're stuck in a job, or they just can't get up and leave and do this?
Yeah, well, don't quit the day job. I mean, that's for sure. You got to be willing to enter into that transition. I mean, reality is to play the game, you've got to have money, right? You got to have that money to pay the bills, to feed the mouths, the whole thing. But you can't put yourself in a situation where you just get this Kevin Costner mentality where, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be willing to enter into that transition. As more and more of your income is derived from what your what is, then you'll know when it's time to cut the rope.
Now, in the book, you mentioned there are 4 paths you could take.
Well, there's 4 different types of people, exactly. 4 paths, 4 types of people. One, and a perfect example is Dr. Joe Amoya that we talked about. That's someone who's a reinventor.
Okay.
Full-on 180-degree shift. Started as a chiropractor, today he's the smarter dating guy, right? I mean, full-on 180-degree shift. Then you have the shifter, like Donna Miller, where there's just one subtle piece that needs adjustment, and then everything falls into place.
Okay.
You have the birthers. These are the people that we mostly hate because they've
They
known
know
like
right from the start, right?
and they've known from the womb, like what it is that they're compelled to do, who they are, and how they're here to impact the world. And then you have the wanderers, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I just mean that they go through life without ever being able to answer the question of what is my what, and it's largely due to the fact that we just don't receive the education that we need in order to get to those answers. You look at our schools, we learn to read, write, and do some math, but nobody really teaches us how to live.
Sure. How do we know what path we're on?
Well, that's a good question, and that's where some of the introspection comes in, where you take a look at the book and you figure out, you know, in terms of reading the definitions of each and where you're at in your life. But I think most of us have a pretty good sense of if we've reinvented our lives, we know it. If we need to make a subtle shift, we're probably clear on that. If we're wandering, we know it, and if we're a birther, well, we're in it.
That's true. What kind of feedback have you gotten with this book?
Oh man, it's great. It's humbling. I got to be honest.
Really?
It's really humbling because I mean, people like Jack Canfield and Randy Gage. I mean, just Marcy Shimoff. Lots and lots and lots of really well-known New York Times best-selling authors are just all over this thing. The media's loving it because it's not just theory, right? It's not just, you know, hey, go out and do this. It's a step-by-step guide to specifically what you need to do to get to those answers. And I think people really appreciate the practical nature of it.
Yeah, sometimes you need a roadmap, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do we get this book?
Well, you can get it for free, actually.
Oh, even better.
You see, I give it away for free,
We love
although
that.
it will be in Barnes & Noble and the whole, you know, all your finer bookstores after September 30th. But for right now, if you go to whatisyourwhat.com, whatisyourwhat.com, you can grab a free copy of the ebook.
I love it. So the name of the book again is What is Your What? Discover the one amazing thing you were born to do. Steve, thanks so much for all the information
Absolutely.
and for the book.
Thanks for having me.
All right, up next, Chef Sherry Swanson is in the kitchen making one of her favorite autumnal recipes when Style returns.